Grand Rising everyone, this is Eldad Amara back with another video. I'm just going to jump straight into this video. Did you hear about the actor and comedian Kevin Hart? Right? Kevin Hart, apparently he was supposed to be doing a concert in Cairo in Egypt, but the government there banned him, and some theatre company banned him. Right? Why? Because he turned around and he said that the ancient Egyptians were black, and he said that he should teach his children, and black people should teach their children about the ancient Egyptians, right? About them building the pyramids and things like the obelisk. Now, what is wrong with that? You see, there's some people, they don't want to give black people any credence. They don't want to give us any credence. When it comes to football, yeah, soccer, when it comes to basketball, when it comes to athletics, them kind of things, we get credence from other people. But when it comes to the sciences, when it comes to law, when it comes to astrology, astronomy, yeah, and all of these scholarly disciplines, we do not get any credence. It's almost as though people think that we're stupid, that we're thick, and that the only things that we can do is play sports and do music and film. But for our IQ or for our intelligence, we're not rated for that. There's a lot of people who will turn around and say that the ancient Egyptians were not black people. Where is Egypt? Egypt is in Africa, right? It's in Africa. Okay, so is the Sudan, so is Ethiopia, and some of these other biblical places that have been written about in the Bible. Which race of people were there first? Africans, also known as Nubians. So these people were there first. But, you know, people don't want to give us credence. They don't want to say that it was the blacks who built the pyramids, built the temples, and the obelisks. And I'm talking about the ancient Egyptians. I'm not talking about modern day Egyptians, okay? Because that's mainly now Arabs that's there. I've been to Egypt 3 times. And let me tell you this. Even the poor Egyptians turned around and said to me, "You, yes, you." I said, "What, me?" They said, "Yes, you. You are the first man. You Nubians, you built the pyramids. You built the temples." This is coming from the poor Egyptians. When I went to Turkey the first time, I remember I had dreadlocks at the time, and loads of the Turkish running to me. "Oh, you Nubian, you is the first man. You is the first man, and you built the pyramids." Yeah, this is ordinary citizens of Turkey and Egypt are turning around saying, "You built the pyramids." Right? Now, there's been invasions, but when Egypt was at its height, that's when all these other groups started coming in and appropriating the Egyptian culture. Now, let me tell you, we had the Persian Empire. Yeah, the Persian Empire, they came in there. The Hyksos, they came in there, also known as a Hirabu. Right? Hyksos, they came in. You had Hyksos is Greeks. Then you had the Libyans. Then you had Assyrians. You had the Archimedes Persians, right? Archimedean Persians. And you also have the Macedonians. And I think Rome was also involved, right? So all of these various different groups came into Egypt. They invaded Egypt. But when did they come in? They came in at the peak of Egyptian civilization, settled there and took on some of their cultures and their ways. You see, the West will say that is appropriation, appropriating somebody else's culture and ideas, right? And joining on your culture onto somebody else's, attaching it. Now, this is what happened. There is way too much information out there, right? Way too much to say other than, yes, it was black Nubians who built the pyramids and the temple. These other groups that came in afterwards, yes, they did build some of the temples, such as the Ptolemaic dynasty. Yeah, these were Macedonians, and they came in and they took on some of the Egyptian ways and cultures and built some of the temples, right? But this is later on in history, right? The Macedonian Greek royals, the Ptolemaic dynasty, okay? And they was in Egypt from 275 to 305 BC Christ. So there's loads of other cultures and other races that were also in Egypt prior to that, because the Ptolemaic dynasty was supposed to have been the last dynasty in Egypt. Now, let me go back to this Kevin Hart thing, man, because this has caused a whole heap of stink in Egypt, but not amongst the poor people there. This is amongst the rich, right? The elite class. They want to say that the blacks did not have anything to do with building of the pyramids. All right, let me read it out this article. Comedian Kevin Hart, amid a major international tour, recently had his planned show in Cairo cancelled. A statement by the Egyptian event management company Production blamed the cancellation on local production issues. They're blaming it on local production issues. However, widespread speculation is many Egyptians took offense at Hart's reported comments about the black history of Egypt, prompting the show's cancellation. So this was really, the show was cancelled, was because of Hart's comments about the ancient Egyptians being black. Wow, if that's not racist, I'm going to just call it out. I'm just going to call it out. If that's not racist, tell me then what is. Let me read on. The post Kevin Hart's Egypt show cancelled after the comedian reportedly made Afrocentric comments about country's history appeared first on Levati, the Middle East focused news site. Our Monitor reports that opposition to Hart's performance in Egypt grew in December, and a quote was attributed to him that questioned Egyptian history. We must teach our children the true history of black Africans when they were kings in Egypt, and not just the era of slavery that is cemented by education in America. Hart was reported to have said in December, reportedly adding, "Do you remember the time when we were kings?" However, our Monitor notes that the quote has never been attributed to a particular source, and whether Hart said it is unclear. Nevertheless, the Middle East Eye noted in December that discourse on social media in Egypt was growing surrounding the quote, with calls for a Hart show in the country to be cancelled. Most modern Egyptians, like many people in the Middle East and North Africa, identify ethnically as Arab, and many Egyptians see attempts to center Egyptian history on black Africanism or blackwashing their history. In addition to the quote about the black kings of Egypt, Some critics also knock Hart for investing in Black Sands Entertainment, a company that produces Afrocentric comic books and animated programs, among other products. What's wrong with that? I don't see what the problem is there, right? Because there's other groups that make products, yeah, about their cultural identity. So what is the problem about Hart making comic books and artifacts pertaining to Afrocentrism? Modern conception of race and ethnicity, such as Black and Arab, did not exist similarly in the ancient world. Scholars have debated Egyptian ancestry and physical appearances during the era of the ancient kingdom. Recent genetic testing on Egyptian mummies suggests they were primarily related to people from Near Eastern regions like modern-day Israel, Lebanon, or Turkey. Meanwhile, research from ancient texts and artwork suggests Egyptians were ethnically diverse during the era of ancient pharaohs. Yes, they were ethnically diverse. That was kind of later on, but we're talking about way, way, way back in the ancient Egyptian kingdom. Way back. Yeah, they were black Nubians of phenotype. There are black Africans of different phenotypes, meaning that they consisted of black people from different ethnic groups. If you look at some black people, they're extremely black with broad noses. Some are fair-skinned, yeah? Some have very wavy hair. Some have very kinky hair. Some have very straight hair. And between them, they have different cultures, okay? So there's different phenotypes amongst black people, just as there is with white people. I reckon there's something like 12 European families, yeah? And so within these 12 different families are different phenotypes. Now, it is also the same, I would say, for the African races. Some people are going to go at me now, right? But there are different phenotypes. You can see it. Look at some black people. They've got straight noses. Some have quite thin noses. Some have big lips. Some have curly hair. Some have straight hair. And some are very tall and some are quite stocky and short. So there's very different phenotypes amongst the black races, just as there is amongst the white races. All come down here at the same time. When are we going to get accredited for some of the things that we have done in the past? We go back much further than just the slave trade, but some people want to have us stuck in that era. Right? And we go much, much, much further back than that. Look at some of the Greek scholars. Herodotus, and what he quotes about ancient Egypt and what the ancient Egyptians looked like. Also quotes Socrates and how he described the ancient Egyptians and what they looked like. Look at what all of these scholars have said about the ancient Egyptians and what they look like. We don't get no credit for our intelligence. And there's some people, there's some of these racial groups want to see themselves as being the ones who have built these pyramids. This is the elite groups of Europe and some of the Arab nations. See, our big noses have been on the walls of those temples. Our big lips have been on the walls of those temples. Our curly hair has been on the walls of these temples. Our different skin tone has been on the wall of these temples. We existed way, way back before an invasion by these various different groups. Some people want to call me racist now, but who is being racist when they want to say that black people were not ancient Egyptians, or that they had nothing at all to do with the building of pyramids, obelisks, and also temples? Anyway, join me for part 2. I'm going to look in more detail at the ancient Egyptians, and was Kevin Hart right in what he said? The ancient Egyptians were black. Let me quickly leave you the image. There's one image of an ancient Egyptian. We're going to come back and look at this in more detail. Eldad Amara. If you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and share.